Well, I want to go over like what I think is really wrong with Ron Paul. Not that I disagree with him in principle. I don't. But what he's always seemed to be to me is somebody who really is to keep the breakaway Republicans that would go to like the Libertarian Party or some other party in line back and pull them back in line. It's into the fold of the establishment Republican Party. That's really what his message is. But the other thing is, he's so far over the top with, like, about ending all wars, ending the military industrial complex, basically, by bringing our troops home, that it's so far over the top that I find it incredible, in a way, right there. But the other thing is, if he was really, really sincere, he would have broke away from the Republican Party if they weren't going along with it. And actually, that's my suggestion to people who say they're looking for a leader. Don't go with either Republicans or the Democrats. Neither one of them. Neither one of them, man. The hell with them. And, I mean, I don't have nothing against Ron Paul being in Congress or anything like that. None at all. But obviously, he's not going to go that far. This stuff about, end the Fed and gold is money, and it's mainly a big showmanship. Because, well, first off, I'm gonna say this. Even the thing I was talking about, Kokesh and all that type of stuff. You want to talk about the founding fathers and their methods and what the American colonists did? They didn't do direct frontal assault. They did guerrilla warfare. They played the British troops didn't like it what they were doing. Well, my point is, like, I'm not talking about battle here or nothing, but the point is, you don't want to stick your neck into a bear trap right off the bat just to prove a point. That's really like what's going on with some of this stuff with Kokesh. Just to flip the subject here, why am I against him? But Ron Paul, he's so far over the top, and he says he's going to bring all the troops home, cut all his government, get rid of the Federal Reserve, but if he was even going to start to do that, he would have been bucking Romney a lot more. And if you notice, I picked up on this, and Webster Tarpley, actually, I don't know, I'm not really a super fan of his or anything, but he did accurately point out, even right from the beginning in the debates, Ron Paul was basically throwing a debate to Romney, and he was treating him with kid gloves. Then Rand Paul endorsed Romney, too. So basically, if you're like just using your smell or whatever you want to say, it's like Ron Paul is there basically as a voice that, if there's disgruntled Republicans, the Tea Party type people, he's there to keep them in line with the party itself and not have them break away. Now, me, like, say for instance, Gary Johnson, he didn't even get 1% of the vote, but say he got 10% of the vote. I'd be getting clobbered by all these pro-conservative Romney people because I would have lost the election to, because I voted for Gary Johnson. But the way I look at it, either one, Romney and Obama, they're screwed up. But what do people do anyway? They think, well, if I don't like Obama, I have to vote for Romney. That's like the conservative thinking, right? Don't do that crap. And if Ron Paul, you see another thing, Ron Paul, I'm not knocking him too much, because I wouldn't want to say like these other, I can't stand 99% of the politicians out there, but something doesn't jive right with him in that it's like he's so far over the top, yet he doesn't have the balls to go on his own party pretty much. And he doesn't, and it's not just that. If you look at 911, he was pretty silent on that in the beginning. Then he says, "Oh yeah, we'll investigate it." But 911 is obvious. Holy shit! Any engineer. Even when I was just I did a construction accounting, but when I saw the planes hit the buildings, those buildings are designed to withstand planes. They had Building 7 just fall down, and Larry Silverstein says we had the building pulled. It was probably the third plane that was supposed to go into it. It's not even like a conspiracy theory. It's like, holy shit. But, he just waffles around on that. So if you're not going to question that, how the hell are you going to end the Fed, bring all the troops home, and stop the military-industrial complex and everything else? Like you're going to just dismantle all this government stuff that's going on right now between the military and the government and all the missions that are overseas, and you're going to end the Fed. Well, you got to start with baby steps, and actually a baby step would be I demanded an investigation of 911. Really demanded hard. You know what? If he did that, he would have been dead. He would have wound up like Matt Simmons criticizing BP, if you remember that, during the oil spill. He died of a heart attack in his hot tub. Now, here's another thing about Ron Paul. I don't want to sound too harsh because it's like, I believe in like his principles a lot of this stuff. He's a little bit, I wouldn't dismantle like as much government as he talks about because I kind of agree with the compassionate socialist type stuff. I think conservatives are kind of too mean. There's people that need government, right? There's people that are in need. But I'm not really conservative or liberal, really. But, I can't remember the details, but I remember there was a lot of, you could say that's a bad thing to say because I was going to look up all the stuff again that I read that I thought was ironclad. But it was about a lot of times, there was a lot of primaries where Ron Paul basically got cheated. And his supporters were surprised that he did not aggressively pursue things. He's like, oh, well, and that's the thing. And, if that's sincere, that he did not aggressively say, hey, I got screwed out of that primary. There's stuff that went on, and he's fighting it. He wasn't really voicing his opinion. His supporters were, and they're a little miffed from what I read that. And I forgot what primaries they were because I was going to research this much better, but it's true. There's been primaries where he got screwed big time, and his supporters were like thinking, go after him. But he was like pretty silent. He's like, oh, well, if that's even like sincere all the way, but I think of it as like he wasn't really supposed to win. He's supposed to like keep the Republicans that were ready to break away from the party in line with the party. But even if you say he was not doing that at all, he was just sincere all the way, he's too weak to be a leader. How the hell are you're gonna end the Federal Reserve and bring all the troops home and you can't fight for a primary really hard when you got screwed? You got to go with the baby steps first. That's the thing. You're not going to freaking conquer, right away the biggest giants that are out there. You got to start with the little stuff. And actually that's a better strategy for like anybody who's has a problem with the government or something like that. You got to basically start with the little stuff. And people can't even vote for other. They can't even do that. That's the other thing. It's right there. You got to, I know there's vote scam, there's like electronic cheating on voting or whatever. I know, I heard all that stuff. Man, I read that stuff in the 70s. I read Vote Scam before they had the internet out where, you had to read it on paper, paper book. I read a lot of conspiracy theories, but people don't even want to, like, vote for other. They just stick with the parties. So, actually, I voted for Gary Johnson, and then on the, I was in Florida. I voted for an independent senator. And then anywhere that was actually, established Republican and was in there a while, forget it. I voted to throw out these judges. I said, bang, get them out of there. If actually a lot of people did that kind of stuff, that would throw a monkey wrench into the works big time. They don't like that. They don't like that at all. There's actually a lot of ways you could screw them up. I don't want to say too many things about that, but even like, I remember they had the death clock or something like that. They used to have posts like with gun control with the death clock. Like if you called up the death clock, it cost this guy so much money. So I placed like 600 calls from different, like when they had the pay booths. I usually went to every pay booth out there, so it was a different number. You had to pay for that. It cost that guy like $500. That works. I don't want to be too suggestive about things like that, but that works, man. But Ron Paul is not nearly aggressive enough. He talks like he's going to stop the whole Federal Reserve, the military industrial. If he really was a major threat to that, they would have took him out, man. I know that. It's like you're going to have to be a politician that's going to go up against that kind of stuff. He's going to have to be like a snake in the grass, man. He's not going to have to say exactly what he's going to do up front. He's not going to be able. You're not going to actually know it. That's a fact. And actually, the politicians that get in the most trouble, like Trafficant. He was a Democrat. I kind of like that guy. That's a good politician. Sometimes they get in trouble, they deserve it, and sometimes they don't. So, Ron Paul, he could have made a lot of problems for the Republican Party. Then it would have been saying, "Oh, he lost the election. He freaking lost the election anyway." I don't know. That's the way I look at it. If you got it, you don't. And no leader's just going to save your ass, man. If you don't have, if the majority of Americans don't have the balls to go with other than Democrats and Republicans, and they're all dissatisfied, then freaking hang it up. I mean, really, whose fault is that? I mean, it's pretty simple right there. I mean, I just say screw the hell with both of them. Ron Paul basically has been behind the established Republicans all along. It looks like a game to me that he's out there saying all this stuff to keep like the liberal, not the Tea Party type, in with the established Republicans. They don't want them breaking away. They don't want the party to lose power. That's why you got Ron Paul. And Webster Tarpley was right. If you look at the debates, he basically threw it to Romney, and Rand Paul endorsed Romney. And something else, that Webster Tarpley put out that I thought was very interesting, because this tells me a little bit more about Ron Paul. Ron Paul has more people in his family working for him than any, like the Congress. He's like he hires all family, all the way. So like when you're giving him money, what are you doing? I mean, really, what are you doing? It's like you wish you would be like going for what he thinks he says, but probably just supporting his career politician's son and his family. I mean, I wouldn't give him money. Gary Johnson would have been good to support. But if Ron Paul ran on a third ticket, third party. See, in other words, if you're going to attack and dismantle the military-industrial complex, take out a lot of government, make it a much smaller government, and dismantle the Federal Reserve, you're definitely not a Republican. He should have been third party. He's not going to be third party because basically he's there to keep like the Tea Party type people in line. And like I said, you're going to have to play guerrilla tactics with anything. Shrewd. Don't direct frontal assault against something ain't going to work. I mean, if you're going up against a castle, mining like that's used to call the mines, undermine the walls. Take your time, you dig. You don't freaking run into the wall like headlong, like a moron. Don't do that stuff. That's my point on this whole thing. I'm not against the principles of the Bill of Rights and anything. I'm not at all. I just don't see the strategy what some of these people are doing, and I see a lot of these leaders as they're probably working for the man himself. Like I think Kokesh is the man. Adam versus the man. I think he is the man. He's working with the man. He's part of it. And Alex Jones, I think he's part of the fake alternative media. He knows exactly how far to go. He's making money on that shit too. That's what it is. So, I just say this. It is kind of simple, man. We do have alternative leadership out there. People are too afraid to vote for him, It's like, Gary Johnson was already there. How many people voted for him? How many Ron Paul supporters even voted for him? I think a lot didn't. He only got, I don't even think he got 1% of the vote. I mean, that's the one we should have been behind, because obviously if you're anything with the Republican Party, none of that stuff Ron Paul said is going to happen. And remember, he really... for a guy that says he's going to dismantle the Federal Reserve and the military-industrial complex, it took a lot to even get him to say, start even mentioning anything about 911. He was backing off that like crazy, you know. But, you take a guy like Matt Simmons with BP, man. He was pointing out all this stuff about the well, and that was just a riser, and these guys are putting on a smoke and mirrors and stuff. And then, what happened to him? He's dead, right? That's what I think would happen to Ron Paul if he really, really was a sincere revolutionary leader. They would have killed him somehow or another. Like Matt Simmons, I know he wasn't murdered. He died of a heart attack in his bathtub, his hot tub, right? I don't buy that shit. I don't know. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't trust what's the deal with Ron Paul. And I say this: remember that the founding fathers and the colonists who were fighting against the British, they didn't do things head on. Like, even when they did the Tea Party, what did they do? They dressed up like Indians. The Indians did it. They didn't say, hey, we're the colonists. We're going to march out here to open at daytime to throw the tea over the freaking ships. No, they did it, snuck out there at night dressed as Indians, and they did it when nobody's looking, Not saying to do this kind of shit, but you know what I mean. You don't play direct frontal assault. That's dumb. So, and anybody that's telling you to do that is probably trying to lead you in a trap. Like I said, I think Kokesh is the man. He's the man. He's working for the man.